So Saturn entering Pisces. So let's go back to the camera because I feel like I want to make sure that you don't forget that I exist. All right. So again, I just want to, before we get into this conversation today, there are going to be parts of this conversation that may not be comfortable to hear, right? It's like, oh, right? Why do we have to have it this way? Why does it have to play out this way? It may be completely okay. I don't know. But the intention here is that I don't want to give you some magical ideal about Saturn through Pisces. I think that this transit through Pisces is probably one of the most impactful transits that we're going to experience for a very, very long time, because of the nature of the effect that this transit is going to do for us as a civilization. And it's going to reverberate. Pluto through Capricorn, squaring Uranus and Aries was a big deal. We're still living in the echoes of that transit. I mean, we don't live in the same world anymore. There's wildly different things that have come up in our lives. But this transit over here is going to very much shape things for us in a way that, yeah, I don't know how to explain it. It's just, to me, this transit is not just a, hey, Saturn's going through Aries, Saturn's going through Pisces, or Saturn's going through Virgo. This is a very significant transit or planetary activation, because it speaks to the closure of Pluto through Capricorn, and it also speaks to the purpose that Neptune has had in Pisces. So it's activating these outer planetary transits, which I said at the beginning of this conversation, that has changed the landscape of our globe radically. Okay, we've gone through a lot. We don't live in the same world, and that can be said for somebody that's living in the 1950s that looks back to the 1910s. So in one way, it's not as dramatic, because we always go through these radical shifts and changes, and it's just how life is. But on another level, living through the experience, that's a completely different story. So that's where I'm at the moment. So let's get into some of the slides for us. Okay. So what you can do, I encourage you to do this, is obviously look at the Saturn transit in your chart. Right? Go and get your astrology chart and notice where Saturn will be transiting for this next year, 2 years. Right? What house is it going to be landing? And if you want to make real sense of Saturn's transit through Pisces, look to the house that it's in. So let's say it's in the 4th house, right? Study your moon in your chart, right? Your moon is obviously going to have, to me, as an astrologer, evolutionary astrologer, the moon is going to play a significant role in how Saturn will be transforming you. So look to where Saturn is in your chart. And if it's whatever house that's in, so if it's in the 1st house, I'd encourage you to look at Mars. If it's in the 2nd house, I encourage you to look at Venus. 3rd house, Gemini. 4th house, Moon. 5th house, Sun. 6th house, Mercury. Sorry, not 3rd house, Gemini. 3rd house, Mercury. 7th house, look at it at Venus again in your relationships. Look at, if it's in your 8th house, look at your Pluto. Look at dynamics around changing, letting go of things, something transformational. If it's in your 9th house, look at Jupiter. 10th house, Saturn's going to be there. It's its own sign. If it's in your 11th, look at Uranus. If it's in your 12th, look at Neptune. There are going to be some deep correlations over there. And of course, it's not as straightforward as, okay, that's the answer, but that's a way to start looking at your chart to making connections. You're going to live the Saturn through Pisces story. Okay. This one's deep. I don't know if I'm going to be able to capture the entirety of this transit in this transmission, but I'm going to try. I encourage you to come back and watch this thing over and over, because there's going to be a lot that I'm going to present to you that, probably will be overwhelming in many ways, but in another way, it's good to come back and utilize this. And again, like I said, I'll be putting this in the YouTube channel as a separate video. So Saturn entering Pisces. Let's go ahead and have a look at this transit. Okay. So step 1, right? This image here, time. To me, this image captures the archetype of Saturn and the archetype of Pisces in such a poetic way. It's like it symbolizes the core essence of these archetypes. Okay, so I'm going to try and break this down in a way that inspires you to see something deeper, that opens up dimensions of reality within you. Okay, so as you can see, there's two parts of this image, right? You can see on the left-hand side, there's a very small leaf. It's bright and colorful in the sense that it's green, and you see I've got "you are here." And then right on the other side, there's this leaf that has lived its life. It's culminated. It's now died off, and you can see that it's brown, right, indicating the end of its life. And you can see I've written there "you are here." Now this is my kind of like Mars and Gemini joke, where it's like a polarity. How can you be at both places at once? We are. You can't. You know. We are at both places at once. That's what Gemini does. It tells us that two things can be true at the same time and also wrong at the same time. There's a parallel, right? There's always a paradox. There's always two things happening at the same time and nothing happening at the same time. It's like it's just hilarious. And so this image here of "you are here" and "you are here" is absolutely true. And so for those of you that are kind of following along at the moment, guess which energy encapsulates the young leaf, and which energy encapsulates the leaf that has run its course? Like which if you just look at the astrology chart that we're currently we looked at the full moon of Virgo, the planets, where is it? Right? Which one's which here? So if you kind of answered with all of the Aries energy representing the "you are here" with the young leaf, then that's correct. And all of the Pisces planets with Saturn in Pisces and "you are here," that's what that represents. In time right now, there is both the culmination and ending of cycles, and there is also the emergence of something new. That was Jung's conversation here. When the time is fulfilled, right? Something has lived. It's become fulfilled. A new orientation will irresistibly break through. That's the fundamental essence of life. You're literally looking at the fundamental essence of life, at the core of our genome, the core of our biology, the core of the material world. Things start, they have some point, there's excitement, there's some journey, there's a life to be lived. It's colorful, it's vibrant, and then it reaches a senescent point in which that process is filled with wisdom, but it's also ready to move on. This is the cycle of life. And at a deepest level, if you see Saturn's transit through Pisces as a process of facilitating and actualizing this truth, you get it. You will see it. That's why I'm saying it's deep. You will see the stream of life age. You will see the aged world. You will see things age. You will see conversations have aged. You will see things have aged. And there will be deep wisdom that will materialize and permeate out of these aged experiences because we've lived it. But at the same time, there will be something irresistibly new that wants to come out of it. There's a fresh energy that wants to burst through and say, please, something new. So this is the core. To me, this is the core of Saturn through Pisces. It's the awakening to this principle of life and the realization of it. Saturn makes things real by telling us where the gravity is. Saturn reflects time. We always perceive Saturn as this archetype that tells us how to grow into the world, and that is true. But we're missing the essence of the archetype. It's actually an archetype of deep inner reflection that shows us what we have done. But we're looking ahead and we're saying, where are we going? But Saturn says, look where you have come from. And then when you see Saturn and you reverse it the other way around, you actually see the story that you've lived. You see the decisions you've made. And when you reflect on those decisions, you actually course correct. And then automatically, simultaneously, you both reflect on what you wish to course correct and make a new decision, giving you the direction. So when you look back, you're actually moving forward. in alignment with your truth, because reflection awakens something deeply real within you. It gives you time to say, that's what I like, that's what I didn't like, this is what I feel I can do better, this is what I feel I need to leave. You understand? I no longer want to be in relationships where I fawn because I'm, creating codependency and then getting angry and whatever of the sort because I'm, losing my identity. And so when I look back at that, maybe I can do some trauma work to heal parts of myself that have been disassociated. That's an example of this. So at a collective level, we will see a new emergent energy materialize. It will take on the form, whatever the planets are, but you will also see the decay. Right? So Saturn shows us the coloring of these leaves and the container of these leaves, and Neptune in this image here shows us where life is present and vital and where life has evaded, has left. Okay, so this is the core guiding principle of this process. So let's see if that's the next one. Okay, so the first thing that I want to bring into this conversation over here is this image. So for those of you that have done the 2023 Year Ahead workshop with me, you'll know what I mean by this. This image over here, like, does this image feel clear, grounded? Does it feel to you that it is calm, that there is something that you can have, that you can engage with, and it could feel like, you know what, I'm pretty safe, right? This image over here, the image of overwhelm, will become deeply apparent with Saturn through Pisces. Again, there's a binary that will take place. Some of us will experience it in some ways, others will experience it in more intense ways. The world will, in some ways, experience this. But Saturn, the Pisces archetype, one side of the binary of Pisces archetype is this enormous creature, this enormous event, this enormous situation that scales in mega structure. An earthquake is the Pisces archetype. There is no, you don't get to interact with the earthquake and say, by the powers given to me by, whoever, I'm going to now stop this earthquake with my hand. That's nuts. So we will experience and go through a pattern within our lives, individually and collectively. The symbol of overwhelm will be with us. We will experience things come into our lives more progressively that will feel as if we don't have a choice. Right? This speaks deeply to the core logic of Pisces, surrender. So the image of overwhelm, I want you to take in as it can be a symbolic, it's a symbol, and it can be something like your job can no longer facilitate the amount of people, and the workplace, the financial situation due to inflation or whatever has reached capacity, and the business just collapses within and of itself. And something comes out of that, right? Overwhelm, loss, the symbol of meaning and purpose and stability and structure now has been removed from underneath your feet, and you're faced with chaos. The Saturn through transit, Saturn through the 12th house will bring chaos in different forms, and the degree to which this chaos will take place is dependent, right? You may experience complete chaos in your life when something that once was there and supported and had meaning it just gets taken away, or changes occur without you having that control, and it will feel friggin' scary. It will send you into chaos. The collective will go into chaos. The interesting thing about it is that for those of you that have gone through deep transformational experiences throughout through Plato through Capricorn, that have come out the other side of things, one of the initial experiences that you went through was a complete realization that the very foundation of structure and safety and security is no longer there. It's no longer there. It's taken from underneath your feet, and you are now in a state of chaos, because that which held structure for you, that which was in whatever form or shape holding you in a safe space, has set you into chaos. I'd argue that while it in that moment will feel completely nuts, and why would anything want to possibly have this effect on you, it is actually a part of what I seem to see as a natural transformational pattern in the times that we live in today. So in order to go through a completion and something to be reborn, something has to go through chaos. And that may mean the loss of something that leads you to a reality where you're like, oh my God, I look back at it and I'm like, this, now I get it. But at that time I was like, this is nuts. So this process of Saturn through Pisces will collectively show you where people will be showing up at your doorstep or showing up in the wherever and going, there's chaos. And chaos will be there. You will see the image of chaos in the collective. I don't know what it will look like, but it will be present with us. It's like one of the ways that I see Neptune interact, especially with Saturn, is that the ocean, the wave is on the beach, right? And then when Saturn enters Pisces, the wave, the ocean starts to recede like that, and then you start to see all the shells and you start to see all the debris that is underneath the water, and you get this reality check, and you're like, whoa. Saturn through Pisces, collective disillusionment, collective realization of the absence of meaning, the collective realization that people have lost faith. And this will happen at capacity. People individually have gone through these experiences, accelerated through 2019, 2020, and 2021. We will now see this happen at a collective scale. And again, what do you do with that? Nothing. You can't do anything with it. It's a natural cycle. We just move through it because there is something new emerging out of that senescent structure. Pluto is now saying we're at the nth degree of this process. We're done with this cycle. So it's time to move on. It's a natural piece. And so embracing that is the wisdom that will come from this. You can't do anything about it. You must be in some way consumed by it, which is a scary thought. I'm not encouraging you to just jump straight into chaos. I'm saying when that cycle, expect to see it, and when it does see it, you will need to be the lighthouse standing firm. That was the whole point. Like, go back to my YouTube channel in 2020 and look at the first 2 videos on Saturn entering Capricorn in January. And you will see there that there were very clear messages that are saying, this is a time where you need to learn how to anchor yourself into yourself, because when the planets move forward like that, this will be your ability to feel that you can weather the storm. Saturn entering Pisces is the capacity to weather the storm. And if you are just a small little tugboat in the middle of a gigantic ocean, and you can't read the navigation, or you're going to be, the likelihood of being consumed by this is high, because these, again, like I said, these planetary systems are not looking down at humanity and saying, hey, you guys, like, I know that this transit's going to be tough, but look, I'll give you a break, right? Yes, there are going to be beautiful things that come of this. People are going to realize deep states of meaning and connection with soul. There are going to be states of huge awakenings that will occur with the Saturn through Pisces. And it will be friggin' amazing to watch, because that will look like the emergence of humanity coming into contact with something deeper within itself that the current structure of reality cannot facilitate. The environment, if the environment is set to only render these types of experiences, think of Pluto through Capricorn saying that environment no longer works anymore. The chaos is, well, how do we now interact with each other when the only thing that we've been conditioned to live is like this? That's the chaos, I mean. How do we live outside of the context of what we've always thought was true? That's the question with Pluto square Jupiter throughout 2023 is, Are you comfortable stepping out of your comfort zone and being able to experience yourself in a dimension of yourself in a completely different way with no conditioning? Right? So you will see things like tools, numerology, astrology, etc., human design, stuff like that, become more widely received because it will be the antidote to chaos. It will be like, give me clarity, give me relief, right? Okay. There is a story to this, by the way. It's not just like me just blabbering a whole lot of like bad things about this transit. I'm just kind of trying to keep it real. So part of the Pisces archetype is experiencing the loss of innocence. Okay. So Pisces is this archetype of idealization, and the reason why it's ideal is because it represents the very core essence of that which is the most purest. How many of you have got like strong Neptune like aspects in your chart and oftentimes struggle with the level of disgust you may have for something, right? It may feel it's like, oh, I can't be contaminated by that, right? I'm hypersensitive in here, I'm sensitive here. Like the energy within Pisces is, it also reflects, ironically, this duality of complete overwhelm and chaos and this monstrosity of something that is so confusing and overwhelming that the moment you interact with it, it just feels as if the lines of reality are blurred, and you're now in some Alice in Wonderland environment where you're too small and the environment's too big, or the other way around, right? Or you experience the pure magic of the divine, which for the ego can be incredibly intoxicating because there's this union, this divine with something, this union with divinity in a way that lures you into states of consciousness that can also blur the lines of reality. That's why these two pictures I chose on purpose, because this one over here brings you into this divine connection of complete oneness, right? And it's magical. Look at the blue colors here. And then you look at something like this, for instance, you're like, what is that? They're not even the same things, and yet these images are housed within Pisces. So innocence. How many of you have experienced that moment where you see something so incredibly awful that you go, how can God possibly, or how can life, or how can something so malevolent have something exist like this? Like, let's just take, for instance, a baby, right? We all know that if we get a new puppy or a new sort of baby, like a baby goat or something like that, right? And a cat and stuff, we dissolve into this very primal kind of divine child archetype within our consciousness. It drops our defenses, and this innocence prevails, right? And it kind of overrides our instinct for anything horrific, and we it awakens something within us, right? And it's like it opens up a divine thing within us, right? So this innocence, this peace. Imagine if something came along like this picture over here and started to then, in some way consume this innocence. What's your reaction, right? Let's say the baby, right? But somebody comes to it and then puts it in a trash can and leaves it out there. What type of emotions surge into your body, right? Or you see an animal that's a baby that unfortunately gets killed. Like, there is an incredible fracturing that takes place within us because we know at the core of something that is that innocent, the disruption of it, the distortion of it, the breaking down of it, it speaks to something so primal within us that we would want to protect it. So this full moon in Virgo, as well as this Saturn through Pisces, the question that you will also be proposed with is, what is the thing in your life, what is the symbol of innocence that you are prepared to keep safe at all costs? what image of overwhelm, what image, if you look at this image here and you imagine that it is ready, it's on the peripherals of your life, and it's about to start encroaching on this thing that is so innocent. This is what's going to change reality. This is what's going to challenge reality. There will be a binary that will take place in ourselves, emotionally, as well as the collective. We will be in this reality trying to figure out how to navigate this binary between that which is so innocent that must be protected at all costs, and that which is chaotic and overwhelmed and must be avoided. It may be realizing that a relationship that you're in is the image of overwhelm. It's consuming you. And you need to then ask yourself, at what cost is my innocence being destroyed? Like, that's just one silly example, but you will see this binary take place between, what is it that you cannot sacrifice? So that's one question. What are you prepared to not sacrifice? And what will Saturn through Pisces ask you to look at and say, well, actually, I think you need to sacrifice this. In another way, this energy of innocence we will be exposed to things that we don't want to be consumed and are. And this is like life. Like, the reality is there are wars. The reality is that there are events and circumstances that are going to be incredibly difficult to deal with. And so how much resilience do we have to deal with those things, right? This is where this is what will birth within the collective, within people. You will almost find yourself riding this wave in which you will want something to not taint that innocence. And that can be, it can be a president, it can be your boss, it can be a relationship, it can be an addiction. At the end of the day, Saturn through Pisces is going to help us collectively heal addiction. This is a potential. At the core of whatever addiction is that something that was so pure had to be kept safe. And in place of that, we have the experience of pain and suffering. And we need to keep feeding ourselves to remain innocent. That emotion within us, let's say we experience a childhood trauma, and in order to protect that innocence that cannot be, hurt, broken down, traumatized, it disassociates. So you will see collective disassociation take place here. Saturn will reveal it. Like I said, with the ocean, it will recede. And what you will see is the effects of a society that allow for our innocence to be hidden, to be not spoken about. And so this full moon in Virgo was the capacity to work through where we still maybe have collective shame, where we may hide that innocence in fear of it being reconsumed by the thing that's overwhelming, the monster, whether it be the tyrannic father that you still need to process that trauma through, whether it be the unavailable mother, whether it be whatever experience you've happened, whatever event that has happened in your life that has caused you to experience suffering in some way, that innocence, this Saturn through Pisces will give us the opportunity to work through that. And part of that process reveal where there will be addictions, as in actions that hurt us more than the actual pain itself, because the avoidance of the pain is in some way, it makes sense to avoid it. So but we're disembodied, we're disassociated from it, right? We don't want that to be tainted. So this is a call to those that are in positions where your own healing process has taken place, and you have developed tools, that you're in a position where you have worked on yourself to a certain degree to be able to at least manage some of these more emotional parts of ourselves that have been wounded. Because this will be a time where you will see people need it. The Saturn in Pisces is a collective disillusionment. It's a reality check. It's, oh shit. And those that are unable to deal with the impact of that experience will be seen, right? And the irony of this whole entire conversation is that this transit is pushing towards healing, but healing in a delusional state is pretending that the fantasy you live in is reality. The disassociation, the addiction, whatever that is the truth. Whereas the addressing of the wound is what Saturn wants to do. It wants to say, hey, please, like Neptune through Pisces has been helping us clear out fantasy from reality. And that line is so freaking thin that it's not something you just wake up and go, oh, I can tell the difference between the two. Every single one of us at some points will just be like, whoa, I didn't realize I was actually just buying into something that was completely ideological. But this transit will bring into focus that thin line between what's insanity and what's not. And the funny thing about it is, depending on which side of the coin you're seeing, one could look like complete clarity, and to the other person, that's complete insanity. Like psychosis is a Neptune archetype. Saturn will come into it and say, hey, this is where we're kind of still a bit stuck here with some of these illusions. So the path to healing is a deep, radical transformation of the lies we may tell ourselves in order to remain comfortable. So I think of Pink Floyd's song Comfortably Numb, right? That would be a prime example of Saturn entering Pisces. There will be the capacity to heal addiction as well as the capacity for that to rise because of the overwhelm versus innocence, right? The people's capacity to not have innocence be tampered by something that is so gigantically overwhelming will promote a need to put more buffers in place in order to deal with the impact. And Saturn through Pisces will show us that. So help us clear through distortion. What you will see become more progressively clear for us with Saturn through Pisces is where distortion has been a mechanism of distraction or a mechanism of non-clarity. That's what I'm saying. Like the process of this full moon in Virgo that's happened with us over here is telling us, hey, we're going to need to sober up. It's like every single person on the planet having to need to check into some form of AA or some form of rehab. And that doesn't mean as in each of us needs to do that individually. A lot of people have already done that right when this was initiated in their individual lives, and they went through a healing journey and realized, whoa, I realized how much stuff I needed to work on, to heal, to clear out my grief, my shame, my guilt, my dysregulation, my trauma, my PTSD, whatever. And now people feel that there's an actual possibility to live in a world where their dreams become real. This is the binary here. People will feel free, will feel as if they're in flow, if they're in reality. They see something magical because they're no longer trapped by the ghosts that haunt them from the past. Some people will actually feel that the first time in their life, they feel aligned with something that's real's real. Psychic drift. I love this image because it just speaks so deeply to the archetype of Pisces and Saturn. Like, look at this image over here. I want you to kind of hold it in your mind, right? Think about when a ship gets wrecked on the ocean, right? So let's go back to the 1800s, 1700s, right? These wooden ships, even the 1600s, right? These wooden ships would be wrecked by the ocean Neptune, right? And overwhelmed, just this chaos of this wave just comes along and boom, and there's a shipwreck. What do you generally tend to see in films, right? There's wood planks all over the place and everything's kind of drifting along, in places, and that's the psychic drift. Saturn through Pisces will reveal where the collective is just drifting. They're just drifting along, kind of just, comfortably numb in that sense. And then others that feel as if they're on a boat that's just like, wow, I'm in the stream over here. And I saw a meme, I have to share it. It said, it was an advert for green energy, and it said ships now using wind as the energy to make it move. And this person in the comment was like, whoa, that's a revolutionary invention. And the irony of it is that ships in the day where it was made out of wood used sails, the wind energy, right? We just lived in an industrialized world where, the point I'm trying to make here is that people will feel as if the wind is behind their back and they're just being moved in the direction that is so serendipitous, right? That's the power of this thing. It's just this capacity to feel as if you are actually moving in a flow, in a current of reality that ironically is actually the monster, right? It's this overwhelm of energy that's just drifting you in a direction, but you're like, whoa, I'm so connected with the soul experience, I feel meaning. And then there'll be the binary where people will experience this shock psychically with Saturn transit through Pisces, where we'll just witness where everybody is just drifting along. We're just drifting along. It's like another day, glazed over, disassociated, reality is too intense, right? It's a yin sign. So there's a kind of like, and that's the piece here. Saturn through Pisces was, we're not in Kansas anymore, Dorothy. I mean, that's the tagline I would probably say for this entire thing. We're not in Kansas anymore. We will see things. And we may see it as complete alignment with God, Goddess, or we may see it as the complete chaos, right? And so the apocalypse is here. The apocalypse is here. Right? This is Saturn through Pisces, the structures, Pluto through 29 degrees. And there, you just need to walk around the cities and you will see places that have been consumed, that no longer can survive. And then you will see other places that will just emerge out of this, that will have life force in it, right? And so the apocalypse is here. It's not coming. We are in it. It's revelations. This is it. Saturn through Pisces. That's what I meant when I said around the beginning that this transit through Pisces is not just kind of like, oh, it's Saturn transit through Pisces. No, this is the complete revelation of a collapse of an externalized identity that no longer is true for us. The truth that we once subscribed to will no longer be the truth anymore. And to various forms we'll experience this. And then in that, oh my God, this is no longer my truth anymore, we will then have to process emotionally the loss of innocence. How could I be so stupid to believe in it? I felt like I was deluded, whatever, right? It's not the purpose of the transits, it's just an effect. Saturn through Pisces is just saying, hey, by the way, like, sorry, but you've been wearing tinted, rose-tinted glasses for a period of time, and it's been fun, you've seen Willy Wonka, but I have to take them back now because the time's up. So that's what the actual brick house looks like. Do you know what I mean? But to other people, they'll be handed some gloves. Some gloves. They'll be handed some gloves. They'll be handed some goggles that will look as if they're actually penetrating the depths of their own psyche, going, wow, I feel fulfilled. I feel in alignment with something magical. Right? And what that binary will look like is those that have done the emotional work to be able to then come into contact with something more real within inside of themselves. That's the purpose. We're moving into a world in which there is more transparency. That's Pluto and Aquarius. So you will see a kind of like a surge of surveillance occur because, there needs to be transparency between things that are hidden and things that are not, and will be sold as safety and security. But Saturn, Pluto through Aquarius is actually coming into complete realness with each other. being completely free. And so what I mean by this is that you will step into a world and you'll be like, you know what? I've got baggage. I'm okay with that. This is my shadow side. I've dealt with my demons. I'm dealing with my demons. This is who I am. I'm comfortable to talk about it. You know, this thing that there's a core kind of conversation that's going around now in ADHD and autistic or autism communities, and where we talk about masking, right? It's nothing new. It's just kind of identifying that in a society where we have to put on a face to be able to deal with pre-programmed behaviorisms, this is the transit that says, get rid of that. Stop pretending. Be real. Right? So this is bringing into reality the way that we actually are as human beings versus trying to put buffers in place and being afraid of the things that we don't own about ourselves. Right? This is the apocalypse, is the stripping away of the falseness that we hold in our lives because for whatever reason we put it in that place, right? It's just the natural evolution. It's not something that we've done wrong. It's just how it is. But there's no more pretending anymore. Right? There's truth. Yeah, and that leads people to authenticity. Like, hello, like Pluto and Aquarius is, do you align with communities that resonate at the core of your being? Well, what happens if you show up in a community and you're completely dishonest and not real? Like, how can other people know who you are? How do you know who you are? How can you even participate in a community-oriented experience in a group associations and be actualized if you're hiding parts of yourself because you're ashamed of it, or you haven't worked on that emotional conflict that you carry within you, right? And so it comes out. And so this is what I'm talking about. Like, the transparency will be seen. People will see through your BS, and it will become unavailable to hide. So in a way, this transit is helping us as a collective heal the lack of intimacy we have within ourselves, between our own self and the idea of, or the way that we present it. And so to heal that process, whatever that intimacy looks like, right, that core binary that separates us, the falseness that we need to live, and then by doing that, it actually allows us to connect with a fractal of reality when you can navigate and be like, hey, these are the people I actually gel with. These are the people that I'm in sync with. These are the people that can present an idea and create something, and I can participate because I'm real with who I am. I'm honest. I'm in alignment with that which is true. You know? So if you think about this type of work moving forward, it's the capacity to be in true authenticity, and part of that process is healing and recovering from the last 400 years of civilization, right? Breaking down these ideals of, you know, I should be perfect because if I'm not perfect, how am I going to be accepted? Well, it's like, well, start by accepting yourself. I mean, that's been my personal journey throughout my entire life. And like I said, these nodes, literally, the sun and moon opposition literally lands on my squares to the nodes. But that's been difficult. Being who you are leads to rejection from other people. Can you handle that? Saturn through Pisces asks. Okay, so the apocalypse is here, right? The revelation is here. We're now in reality. We can see that our structures and systems no longer serve deeper humanity. We can see through the nonsense. We can see through these things. It's, can people cope with the revelation? That's the piece. Can people cope with the revelation? Okay. So, rediscovering our lost parts. And this is the piece, right? This process, the Saturn through Pisces, will give us the opportunity to rekindle, connect with, allow the spaces within us, the voices within us, to speak up, to allow for us to recover the parts that we've needed to disassociate, disembody, reject, get rid of, because A, it's not accepted, B, we've got rejection patterns. Society's informed us through cultural ideals that this is not acceptable. Saturn through Pisces is going to say, hey, for those of you that are in some weird fantasy trance, I'm sorry, but I'm making cold sober over here. right? The water's about to turn from nice and hot to cold. Are you okay with a little bit of hyperventilation for a bit? And the other piece is people feeling that they're so sober within themselves that they feel this crystal clarity because they are interconnected with something that's deeper, that goes beyond this physical identity, and that is in alignment with something that's, powerful. So the rediscovery of something that has been lost. What magical part of you? All right. So I'm going to touch on something right now that, weirdly enough, could probably take up another hour and a half worth of conversation, but I can't do that. So light and dark. For those of you that are familiar with Carl Jung, he wrote a book called, well, he not wrote a book, but his collected works. There is a part of his collective works, it's titled Ion. Okay, Ion. And he talks about something really profound in there. He talks about in the context of his writing at the time, he's referring to Christian ideology. And he was talking about the psychic experience of a symbol of Christian values, and what happens when those values or that type of ideology is lived in an unconscious way. And in the way I describe it right now, and what he's referring to, that they're synthesized, but I don't mean in terms of like unconscious, I mean more in the sense that there are going to be, there's something deep that's percolating within the collective consciousness, and that there is a binary between light and dark. And in Jung's work, in the collective works of Ion, he goes deep into understanding the binary of the Antichrist. Okay. And so for any of you that are familiar with the way that the psyche interacts with reality, the psyche will use symbolic representations, metaphors. It will then house and project what is in the unconscious into the objects around it in order for it to have it reflected back to itself. So Saturn through Pisces, to me, the conclusion of this process is the revelation of humanity's rejection of its dark side, its pronunciation of the good side as an only, we should only promote the good pieces of ourselves. We should repress the parts of ourselves that are animalistic and shadow orientated. Our demons should be put away. We should shame them. That's bad. Don't acknowledge that process. Only put your best foot forward, and ultimately shame anything that represents anything that could be honoring the parts of us that make us feel uncomfortable. This is ultimately what Jung was talking about. In today's kind of language, right? But at the time, he was referring it to in the sense that there is Adam and Eve, which is Adam represents the part of us that just accepts everything as it is. Do as you're told. Yes, okay, fine, I do as I'm told. And then I pass down my authority to those that are weaker than me by saying you are wrong, I'm right. And then the Eve process is the unactualized feminine in woman, where they are just subordinate, right? It's just like, I'm following the rules. I just take the rules. I take the things. I don't actualize. I don't educate myself. I don't realize I have self-worth, that my perception and intuitive gifts are profound beyond anything, and I have a purpose in society. My job is to just simply be domesticated, right? That's Adam and Eve. These archetypal principles have internalized a sense of authority where it's external, as in other people should direct me, right? And so this revelation, this Saturn through Pisces, Pluto through Capricorn, South Node, North Node, Scorpio, Taurus, etc., Uranus and Taurus, right? All of these symbols right now reflect the collective need to understand this truth, that you cannot suppress this shadow of ourselves. And so most people think Aquarius as this dynamic of, groups and associations and AI and sort of like, yes, that's true. But Aquarius is also an archetype that naturally squares Scorpio. And you only can see the shadow within yourself through the Aquarius archetype. It has to be objectified, right? So that's why when you have friends, and let's say friends call you on your nonsense, they see it. Like, your friends are the ones that you generally go, hey, that relationship, I think that, you're kind of like doing this, right? Friends are always giving us an objective perspective because they're outside of it. Pluto through Aquarius is not going to be some wonderful time traveling, we're going to find gold on some star system 652. That's, that's part of that science process. So we may at some point arrive at a place where we off-planet systems. But for us as a collective, the thing that will be emotionally real for us is the realization that Pandora's box is going to get opened. And those that have been able to work with the concept of bringing the repressed parts of yourself to the conversation, to acknowledge it, to befriend it, to be present with it, to see that that at the heart of humanity, right? It's gosh, I can't remember his name right now. I wish he's the philosopher that was in World War II, and particularly with Stalin, and he wrote about the line that cuts or divides the human heart. Solzhenitsyn. Yes, there we go. Alexander Solzhenitsyn, right? Maybe one of you guys can get that quote and post it in the chat. That would be amazing. But Alexander Solzhenitsyn talks about the line that divides the human heart, right? And that there is a binary of darkness and light there. And we saw that during 2020 and 2021, right? So we will go through a collective rebalancing of the psyche, because with the Pisces age, with the Pisces energy, there needed to be a duality that would emerge from the psyche. There needed to be a binary of light and dark, on and off, left and right. This process with Saturn through Pisces is coming to activate the closure of this process in order for humanity to move forward. Do you understand the gravity of this transit? This is not just a fun, cool little thing. This is the complete awakening of the human psyche that is ready to evolve beyond this 2,000-year process of duality. And that each and every one of us will go through some form of transformation in which the nature of duality must be made whole. And that looks like a disillusionment. It looks like the loss of innocence. It looks like the realization that a large percentage of our collective truths disassociate that which is bad, evil. So the real work with Saturn through Pisces is when you look at somebody and they bring chaos to you, as in they bring the image of overwhelm to you, and your innocence is threatened, do you automatically project the dark side into that process and say, you are evil? That's the truth of this process. How do we see humanity? So there is it, right? The line between good and evil runs not through states or through classes, nor between political parties either, but right through every human heart. Like, if you want to navigate through 2020 with Saturn through Pisces, and you want to understand it at a level that's beyond just the surface fantasy of cool things that are going to happen with this trinket-like glowing rainbowed projection that will be Saturn through Pisces, the core of it will be the realization of what Solzhenitsyn's talking about there. And you will see the distortion. You will see it revealed, that the badness will be there. And can we hold that collectively and individually within ourselves? So we will have beautiful actualizations. People that have integrated the shadow and this dark and this light side will live in freedom from it. It doesn't mean that you won't live in a world where you will see it, but it won't feel as if you are in a tugboat in the middle of an ocean with a 20-foot wave approaching you. It will feel like you are on a very secure, well-anchored like Titanic ship that is incapable of withstanding that wave, knowing that you understand the mechanics and binary of what we're about to go through. Because you will see the wholeness. You will see the shadow in there. You will see the struggle in humanity. You will see the struggle in humanity. And it will provide natural empathy, not virtual signal empathy, but natural empathy. You will be ignited to participate and facilitate and help those break down the binary that splits the collective psyche into this duality. The culmination of a 2,000-year cycle is right at our doorstep. So my final slide here for today, as I release everybody from this collective trance, chaos and loss of faith will ensue. People will become progressively disillusioned because things will become apparent that cannot be avoided. It cannot be like, you can't look at it and go, wow, that didn't happen. You'll be like, shit, that happened. And then there will be a progressive kind of collapse of internalized things that needed to protect your innocence. You will realize, oh my God, I have been lied to. This is not the truth. There will be chaos. There will be loss of faith. And then eventually at some point, there will be an acceptance of that. And so, yes, there will be collective grief. There will be collective psychic drift. And there will be the potential for a new dream to take place.